Well, we're at Friday, the 30th, virtually Halloween, in fact, and we're going to Donegal to see what Halloween's like there. How are you, Pat McCart?
I'm grand, Jude Collins. I'm grand. Beautiful day. The sun's shining. So Donegal, the blue skies of the Republic are shining bright.
Despite the fact that you're suffering from house imprisonment, virtually.
Yeah. You know something, Jude? I think I've been out this week. I think I've been out once. And the only vehicle that arrived, as I said,
outside the door, Pat.
Outside the door, literally outside the door. I think I've been out once. And the only vehicle that arrived in our street this week has been the postman. That's fact.
Yeah. Well, if you must be a nice guy if your wife can stand you.
Who said she's here?
Okay, right, let's get down to business here. We're talking about what everybody's talking about is Jeremy Corbyn. I've just come from Talkback and they're talking about it like nobody's business. Eamon McCann was talking about it. That guy Phil Kelly, the Labour guy, was talking about it. And Deirdre Heenan was talking about it.
Yeah.
There's three experts for you. So, as you know, Jeremy Corbyn has been suspended from the Labour Party because when the report on anti-Semitism in the Labour Party was published, he said that it was something like great deal exaggerated, I think, something to that effect. And Sir Keir immediately bounced him out. What's your instinctive reaction to that, Pat? And is it any different from your considered reaction?
Not in the least. Jude, let me tell you, I'll put it in a sort of a context for you. I was very pro-Israeli for a long time, and until one day I started watching. I actually retired in 2006, and there was a war on in Lebanon, and I started to realize this is absolute. They're blasting the shit out of unarmed people using military-grade weapons and destroying the whole thing. So I actually said, "What's going on here?" And I started actually looking at it. I thought it was poor local Israel and all the rest. And then I realized this is a load of rubbish. So they're absolutely subjugating. And there's we know so little. And I think, and then you see the old trick is if you criticize Israel, you're anti-Semitic.
Well,
any criticism, like there's no criticism of the Jewish people at all. And that's a great conflict. Conflate the two, and then suddenly you're anti-Semitic. The Israelis are getting 10 billion a year from the Americans. They're getting a lot of equipment from the Americans. They have blasted all the rest. So along comes people. The establishment in Britain is totally pro-Israel, really, as is in America. Jeremy Corbyn comes along and says, "Wait a minute, there are people called the Palestinians here." He went out of his way something about that. And briefing against him has been non-stop since he became leader of the Labour Party. And he can't even say a word about anything, and so on. And you've just watched all the media coverage and so on. But there's one thing I must say, because I know you've got strong views on this as well. Al Jazeera, some years, the Arabic station did a thing. I think it was called The Lobby, and it went looking for how AIPAC functions in both Britain and America. The Americans put massive pressure on the Al Jazeera, the Bahrain, the country, to prevent it getting out. And yet they're sort of saying that the Israeli lobby is all above board. It's not. There have been numerous occasions where they've actually tried to blackmail people, where they have, even some American senators have said if they go anti the Israeli state, that they will run attack ads against. AIPAC has been behind all this. So to tell me that Jeremy Corbyn has not been the victim of that is rubbish. No, I know you, right? What's your opinion?
Well, now, the one thing I would say is you've said that if you speak against Israel, you're therefore anti-Semitic. I don't think, to be fair to them, that this, whatever it's called, human rights report, was looking at anything to do with Israel. They were looking at examples of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. Now, the thing that really, I take that point, though, of course, that there is a very, very strong lobby that wants to pin you to the wall. Once you say a word against the policies of the Israeli government, you're therefore anti-Semitic. I agree with you completely. But in this case, they aren't talking about Israel. They're talking about this report about anti-Semitism within the Labour Party. And they, are critical of some of the things that some of the Labour Party people have done. Jeremy Corbyn comes out and says he believes it's greatly or gravely or considerably exaggerated the extent. He doesn't say it doesn't exist. And he didn't say, for example, in any way, in fact, he said the opposite. He said he totally disapproves of anti-Semitism. And of course you'd expect that from the guy, because that's his whole history of looking out for sort of minorities. But he made the central point that if you look at the figures, it's something like 0.3% of Labour Party members who have been guilty of anti-Semitism. Now, that means 99.7% of the Labour Party is not, at least they haven't been found guilty of Semitism. And yet, because he has pointed out it's greatly exaggerated, because he pointed out also that, or somebody pointed out that most people in England believe that up to one third of the Labour Party are anti-Semitic. And he's saying, well, yes, that's rubbish. In fact, the findings are 0.3%. So if 99.7% of any organisation is clean, I think you want to rejoice in that. It's clear to me that Keir Hardie,
Starmer, you're going back a bit.
I know, well, he put that in deliberately. Sir Keir, it's a contradiction in terms, in my opinion. From the very beginning, he's part of that faction which always detested Corbyn. They did not expect him to win the leadership. They tried to reverse it almost immediately. They found that, in fact, he got far more votes. And the reason he's getting more votes was that they had this clause in where the members could vote, not just the parliamentary party. They wanted him down, and now they've got him down. And I think they're going to pay a heavy price, because your man, Len McCluskey, the union man, said, that this was bad news. In other words, this wasn't going to stand. And I've looked at now social media, and whether they're right or not, they're saying we need a new Labour Party.
Absolutely.
I tend to agree, I tend to agree. I think these guys are irredeemable. I think there are certain people in politics who cannot be redeemed.
Yeah. No, the thing about Corbyn was in a no-one position when he was in the Labour Party. He was expected to behave like the Labour, like Blair and all the rest. Look, hey, Jude, go and ask yourself a simple question. What's the difference between David Cameron and Tony Blair? If you can tell me the difference, good for you, because I certainly can. And the disparity between the well-off and society, the rich are getting seriously richer. It's almost becoming like back to that sort of feudal sort of thing, that the few have got seriously rich, and the rights and the working class, of the working class have got a lot less. The unions have been barely bashed. Have you checked the wages of the chief executives as compared to the workers? The factor involved has gone way out. It used to be something like the managing director earned about 5 times what the average worker earned. The managing directors are now earning multiples of hundreds of what the average worker earned. Like there was a guy in America, he was in charge of a bank. Well, his bonus one year was something like 100 million. Like it's become insane. But that whole thing, it's gone totally out of kilter. And Corbyn came in and sort of says, look, wait a minute, we've got to go back. And, you then all the force, the elite, the Murdoch newspapers, and the rock the boat type BBC, it's all against him. Now, he didn't do everything right, of course he didn't. But by God, I think it's about time working people stop voting for Christmas.
That's what I was going to say. How do you then account if, in fact, Jeremy Corbyn's such a decent guy, and I think he is, and I would approve of his sort of political philosophy. How do you explain the fact that not only were Labour beaten by the likes of Johnson, but they were hammered? I mean, the Red Wall went in the north. The north of England voted Tory for the first time ever.
Yeah, look, education. These are the people, the type of people who believe Trump's a good Christian and he has been sent by God. These are the people, like the people who said that they want to go back to who ran these Johnny foreigners, them frogs, and those what do you call it, and those crowds telling us what to do. the good old elite run, it's a very simple thing to do. Tell everybody what they want to hear. Like we are going to take back control. We're going to be great again. And see that wee Pakistani, it's taking your job. He'll be out of here and all the rest. Jude, it's an easy sell. And and a lot of people they're getting on with their lives. They've got a job. They want to go to football on a Saturday. And maybe they have a couple of kids and all the rest. And they're not that politically engaged. It's easy to fool a lot of people a lot of the time.
But, yeah. Do you?
That sounds arrogant, and
No,
remember.
no, I take a point. I'd agree with it. By and large, I'd agree with it. Do you think that the Labour Party will be so divided that they're going to actually set up a new party? You might say you wish they would, but do you think they will?
No, I don't think they will, but I really think they should, because the difference between Keir Starmer, look, the very fact that he's Sir Keir Starmer, they're never going to offer Jeremy Corbyn a knighthood. That's for certain. The establishment they wouldn't take it, but they certainly wouldn't offer it either. Jude, let's get that clear. And so he's not part of that club or that type of club. So the difference between Starmer, Johnson, Blair, Cameron, there's only different shades of conservatism. The old working class in England, in the north of England, has nobody to represent them. And by the way, the Momentum, Jude, when that started up as a sort of a groundswell grassroots organisation, the numbers of people that swarmed towards the Labour Party was phenomenal. So if they strike the right chord, get the right leader, and get the right policies that looking after ordinary workers, making sure people get a fair wage for a fair day's work and all that, I think people are crying out for that. I genuinely believe that.
Would I tell you the part of all that would give me most satisfaction would be that Sir Keir and his mates would be stranded down the plug hole. Really, yeah. I mean, they see it as their fiefdom. I think. Maybe we're being too hard.
But there's this sort of kowtowing for the establishment. Somebody said one time that Jeremy Corbyn was too far to the left. Nobody says Boris Johnson is too far to the right.
Yeah. Well, let's hope they have if those figures are right, and I have no reason to disbelieve them, that 99.7% of the party was not anti-Semitic, and maybe 0.3 is. I mean, it's ridiculous that they should make such a brouhaha about it. And of course, as somebody pointed out, there's probably a hell of a lot of Islamophobia within the Conservative Party to start to surge.
Yeah.
Anyway,
right.
That's all England. Doesn't affect us anyway. We don't care about that. Affecting Ireland, though, is these COVID relief grants, which were paid into. I'm not sure how many people got these COVID relief grants of £10,000, was it?
Yeah.
For
I'm not sure, Jude, but apparently Sinn Féin shouldn't have got them.
Well, there was 3 of them got it. One was your woman, McCallion. They got £10,000 in their account. Mary Lou MacDonald was alerted, and she has since, I suppose she's done a Jeremy Corbyn to them. Has she suspended or expelled them?
No, she's suspended, and I think they've lost the whip. And what do you call her? Alicia McCallion has resigned from her Senate seat, which was, by the way, very lucrative, nice paid, good expenses, and all the rest of it. So she's paid a hell of a price for 10 grand.
Well, what do you think? What's your response? Is that fair enough? They were getting money that wasn't.
Yeah, Jude, it's fair enough. I always take this sort of view. Right, if somebody's done something wrong, doesn't matter whether Sinn Féin, DUP, and all the rest of it. Like Alicia McCallion got 10 grand, and if she knew about it and didn't give it back, that she knew she shouldn't have it, I have no problem. Out, and the same. But let me make this clear: there's a green initiative scheme brewing in Northern Ireland, about £5 billion quid. That's just a fact. DUP, check it. It was in the newsletter. It's probably bigger than the RHI scandal. But everybody, it's just. I think it's. Wait a minute, hold on, let me read this, but I'm just glad you mentioned that. The Northern Ireland, this is from the newsletter earlier this week, the Northern Ireland Audit Office found that a Starmer green energy far more lucrative than the RHA, which saw Arlene Foster approved more generous subsidies than in GB. but managed to get electricity and GB, managed to get people in the electricity who use electricity and GB to pay for it. In other words, here's a £5 billion scheme. It's been very generous, approved by Arlene Foster in Northern Ireland, far more generous in Northern Ireland than it was in Britain. In fact, the people in Britain have sort of paid for it. And this had happened in 2011. Now, if you're talking about public money and 5 billion could involve, why is nobody following up on this sort of, but 10 grand. Now, I am not justifying Sinn Féin, but what I'm saying is there seems to be.
There were others. Now, let's not.
There's a DUP. There's a DUP landlord. Apparently, he's got it as well. But that's not getting much of a coverage. By the way, there could be others as well who didn't deserve it either.
But I'll tell you something. I immediately thought came to my mind when I heard about that this £10,000 landed in these 3 Sinn Féin people's accounts and a whole lot of others as well. Let's make that clear. It wasn't exclusively Sinn Féin.
Yeah.
And then it was discovered that it was in their accounts, and now Mary Lou cut them off. I compared it to going to your ATM, your hole in the wall, and going to withdraw some money from your account. Supposing you went, Pat, and you were taking out 200 quid.
Yeah.
And the machine fed you out 400 quid.
Yeah.
What would you do? Do you take it into the bank and say, look, this machine is giving me £200 extra, I want to give it back to you?
Of course I would, Jude.
I wouldn't.
I would. The bank. Now, if I found it in some poor people and I saw someone walking in the street, dropping it in their pocket, I'd take them here. But see the bank. The bank not at all.
Or if the government in your taxation came back to you and said, "Oh, well, you have
here's 200 quid. You should."
You were sure they were there. You were sure they were in error. You'd hold on to it.
Absolutely. See, if the government give me on a back tax of 400 quid it didn't deserve, I am saying that's their error, not mine. Hard cheese.
Well, exactly the same thing applies to this.
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing applies to this. So I don't think Alicia McCallion and company and all the others were at fault, frankly, or at least it was. They didn't act any different.
No. That's where me and you diverged. She knew apparently no political party was entitled to this, and when it came into their account, when 10 grand comes into your account, as far I'm very careful because I'm not sure, but apparently this was paid into Alicia McCallion and her husband's joint account. That's what it says in the paper, and I'm only repeating that. So
where's that money coming from?
She saw 10 grand, and she's a public representative. She should know. Wait a minute, hey, this shouldn't be in my account. We're not entitled to it.
Where's it coming from? Where's the money coming from?
But hold on, Jude Woodman. See, when you're a public representative, that's not me and you finding 200 quid on a bank. It's not the same.
Okay, let's get a couple of things straight here. We talking about 200 quid or 400 quid? I'm saying 10,000 now. So supposing you put in for £100 from the hole in the wall, and somehow miraculously, I know they don't feed out that amount, but supposing they fed you out 10,000, would you bring that into them?
But Jude, I'm not a public representative.
Come on.
Jude, if they paid out 10,000, I probably would actually go back because there's something seriously wrong there. So I'm sorry for ruining that one on you.
No, suppose they sent you a check. Suppose they sent you a check
for 10 grand. Look, somewhere in the back of my head, I know this is not right, and they're going to catch me out. So what's the point?
The only reason you go back.
Of course it is. I'm as moral as everybody else.
I just think it's asking a bit much. And as far as I know, these people weren't using the money for personal gain. No, but you know that is everybody piles. See this thing. Everybody piles in a way in Sinn Féin that's so disproportionate that the thing I was saying about the DUP and about that scheme. There's nobody touching that. Now it could be nothing to it. But they're saying this scheme could cost up to $5 billion, and so why is that not a big, why is the SDLP not and on that? Why, and all the, but they're all piling in on Sinn Féin. Fair enough, I have no problem with that. If you've done it wrong, fair enough. But jeepers, it's like Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, the SDLP when it's the shinners, and that's the point I'm making. I think I should have investigated more and found out how widespread was this granting or sending of money to people or putting it into bank accounts. Was it a whole lot of small businesses.
Yeah, everybody that paid rates above a certain, I think, were entitled to this grant.
Then they
That,
must
that was a rate above value of local business. But Sinn Féin is not a business.
So I just wonder if there's others who should be paying back.
I think it was for an office and McCallion's case that she had when she was an MP, and I presume they were paying rates on it, and therefore this was they just went under the rates and said, "Oh, 10 grand."
Well, again, I would say it was a carelessness of the people who were doing the job rather than.
You could argue that, but hey, you should be above suspicion when you're particularly and you're with the it's just an agenda non-stop.
It's clear that from Mary Lou's actions, it's clear that she's going to make good and sure that nobody is going to be able to say Sinn Féin is getting dodgy money.
It wasn't party policy and it wasn't deliberate, and she's dealt very swiftly with all the people. Like there's the RIHI scheme. Cost what, 500 million, and nobody's accountable.
No, that's the thing. You see, I'm not sure that kind of. Well, maybe she's wise, but there certainly is no parallel between the kind of action that the media and other people take against the likes of the RIHI scheme or the other green scheme you're talking about, compared to you get the best from the papers. It was only the 3 shinners that got this money. And that was it.
That's it.
It started disgusting. I still wish somebody would send me £10,000 in a check, just to test my moral fiber.
Just to test your integrity and moral fortitude. Yeah.
I'll send you. I'll send you word of my decision. From
when you get
from Bali or somewhere.
Yeah. Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah. Okay. Incidentally, the one man who came to mind there was Barry Michael Duff. When we're looking at that, Barry was cut off very suddenly and completely. I mean, resigned, we're told, but my guess would be that it was, he was encouraged to resign, maybe.
I don't think it's any good about that.
Was very, I could see the sense of why a party would do it. You gotta. I don't believe Barry Michael Duff was sectarian at all. Never has been. But any sign of it, Caesar's wife must just not be pure, but seem to be pure.
To be pure, exactly.
But it's very hard on individuals, I think, whether McCallion or Michael Duff or whoever, where they've really, I don't think they've done anything terribly wrong, but anyway, for the sake of the party. Okay, the last one. This is nostalgia time. We're going to talk about Halloween and whether it has been. Of course, I was going to say you're from Derry. Your next thing from Derry.
Yeah.
Derry have taken personal possession of Halloween.
Yeah.
As their own. Nobody else is allowed to get into it.
No, in fact, Jude, in my golden era when I was editor of the Derry Journal, it was one of the biggest. It started off reasonably small, but by the 1990s, early 2000s, it was massive, absolutely. And they came from all over Ireland. In fact, there was even people came from various parts of the United Kingdom. Derry, and in fact, the other day said it was the biggest one of its type in the world.
Yes, no doubt about it. Well, do you approve of that?
Yeah, and put it like this, I'm not a massive fan of the Halloween and all this ghoul stuff.
Would you not go down and see the parade and the blood and so on?
I did it a couple of years with the kids, and there was fireworks along the foil. It was all very good. But someone seeing somebody dressed as Dracula. Jeez, I remember one guy walking down the street years ago dressed as an RUC man. And I was thinking, you're a very brave guy, because if somebody thinks you are an RUC man, by the way, that shows how long ago that is. That must be 20 years ago. I thought, good God, how dangerous is that?
Yeah. So,
what's your views on it, Dr. Collins?
Given the fact that it's able to bring tourists in and so on and make money and make the reputation of Derry, I'd approve of it. Frankly, I think it's all these getting dressed up and stuff. I think it's kind of American, kind of English or something. Maybe, it's not. I don't believe it's native to Irish people. It's not the kind of thing.
Was there not that thing in the Druids and Samhain? Was there not in the old ancient Irish history?
Maybe back then.
But by the way, you just brought to mind there. I can't remember the context, but there was one of those American, Bible thumping preachers on and said this was a celebration of Satan. You know, so
Oh yes,
yeah,
well, that's true. Of course, there are Americans who don't allow their kids to watch The Simpsons
yeah,
on
yeah,
the grounds that they mock religion. Uh,
yeah,
uh, but yeah, I don't see why. Well, when I was a kid, there was, people would. It was an element of the supernatural because if you think about
yeah.
it, it's All Souls Night, All Hallows Eve,
All Hallows.
So it's all tied in with the Day of the Dead in Mexico and all the rest of
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
So there
yeah.
are elements of that, but
Mm,
I mean that wouldn't worry me in the least. I mean, if young people today enjoy that, they clearly do. Well, I
yeah,
suppose seems to me it seems a bit like the amount of money they spend on getting confirmation dresses and stuff like
yeah,
that. You know, and
yeah,
it does seem a silly misuse of money, but there you are. It has worked.
yeah,
It must be their idea of fun. Do you have
yeah.
happy memories of Halloween when you were a kid, Pat?
Not particularly, Jude. I remember growing up in Letterkenny, we went round and we knocked at all the doors, but it was a gentler, more innocent age and all that. Nowadays, well, not nowadays, that's wrong, but for a while there was a lot of sort of nearly social vandalism. You know, people putting bangers on people's doors and all that sort of stuff, and really annoying them.
Yeah.
That wasn't fun. And of course, by the way, in the Republic, you're not allowed to buy bangers. We used to have to go into dairy to get the bangers and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
you can
no, there was the usual. Somebody got half their finger blown off by holding on too long. A dodge. But like it was basically, Jude. Let's be honest. Kids back in, it was just a bit of fun, and there was no reading anything into it. It was just Halloween, an
But
excuse to put on a costume and go outside and have a bit of fun.
well, bangers used to be forbidden here. Fireworks generally used to be forbidden here. I think in the north
Yeah.
for a long time.
Well, you
Uh,
could certainly buy them in Derry back in the day. That's a
uh,
fact.
well,
Yeah,
I assumed they were because if they're fired off, it might sound like a gunshot and something
yeah, yeah, yeah.
get plugged. But
Yeah.
actually, I have. Did you not have ducking for apples at home and stuff? No.
Yeah, yeah. You remember you had barnbrack with the ring in it at Halloween. You had ducking for apples.
Uh,
You had all the monkey nuts and all that sort of stuff. It was all part of. I suppose it was the crossing over into winter. It was not nearly symbolic
I
of the end
suppose
of
that's what it
October.
was,
Yeah,
some sort
yeah,
of a festival. But even I was a kid, I loved it. I loved
yeah.
we had get some fireworks, bangers, and then these I've forgotten what they were called. These gushed, lovely colors,
Roman
Roman
candles and stuff.
candles or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we used to be ducking. We'd have a basin on the kitchen floor, and you'd be ducking your head in to get your teeth
yeah,
around
yeah.
company bit or something.
Yeah.
But I loved that, and I really enjoyed it. And then I went to St. Colum's as a boarder, and I came back the first Halloween. God, I was looking forward to so much. My sisters, who were 3 or 4 years older than me, they'd moved on. They were, no, we're not doing that. Oh God, such a gunk. It really was. It knocked us. I suddenly realised life wasn't going to be easy.
Life had changed irrevocably.
We used to hang an apple, usually a bloody big cooker apple too, on the ceiling.
Back.
And knock your teeth out.
I tried to catch it, yeah.
I'd break your nose if it hit you.
And then putting your nose, and you nearly drowned, putting under your basin of water trying to.
I remember that, yeah. Somebody, you'd open your eyes and say, oh God, I'm going to drown. You pull your head out. But anyway, those were the days, Pat.
Those were the days, yeah. Innocence.
And people knew their place then.
Yeah.
They didn't step out of line and start challenging.
Absolutely.
And he used to come out on the 12th of July and applaud. Many good Catholic friends of mine used to do the same thing.
Yeah. My best friend was a Negro.
Okay, Pat, I'll stop you there. Before you say something incriminating. Okay, all the best. Thanks, Pat.